Ted Gardner, and I'm an interviewer for the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County, and having the honor of interviewing Ernest Cornett on this January the 18th, 2007. I better get caught up with the century here. And our operator of the camera and everything and runner of this program is Dennis Daly, who's been tremendously helpful and very, very guiding and everything. And it's fun because I think, I don't know if you got my list or not, but I don't know how many I'm up to. Some maybe in the 30s. I'm not sure.
Looks like it. I've got
Something like that. I've had the honor of interviewing over 30 people, and I've learned so much, and it's been so rewarding to me as a kind of an amateur historian, so let's start at the beginning, Ernest. Where were you born and when?
I was born in McRoberts, Kentucky, and it's in Lesser County on July the 28th, 1922.
1922. Okay, that's great. So you'll be 85 in a few months.
Yeah, July the 28th.
Now-
85-year-old.
Now, what was your family? Tell us about your family when you were born. What were they doing? And
Well, my dad was a coal miner. And
okay.
he operated a cutting machine in mines. And I had one brother and 3 sisters at that time.
Tell us about your schooling.
Well, I went to of course, it's operated with the support of the coal mines. The school was right above where I lived, where I went to school,
Right there.
real close to the house.
Yeah.
And
Was
I
it-
only went to the 9th grade. 'Cause my mother died when I was 13,
Oh, that's.
and my dad got killed in mines
Oh.
when I was 2 years old. He got
Oh.
killed when I was 2 years old.
You never knew your dad then, huh?
Not really.
Oh my goodness. How
And
sad.
my mother died when I was 13, so I became an orphan at 13-year-old, and I had to stay different places to make it through to the 9th grade. I finally just quit going to school and went down and worked on a farm.
Did you ever work in the mines?
Not then. I mean, I did after I got out of the service.
Oh, I see.
I worked 9 years in the coal mine.
What kind of a school was it? Was it a fairly large size? More than just a one-room
Well,
schoolhouse?
It was grades up to I think they went up to the 9th grade.
Okay.
Then after that, they had to go to Jenkins, Kentucky to go
Mhm.
to the rest of the high school.
I see. Now you say you had 3 sisters,
Yeah.
and were they farmed out like you were as orphans, or what?
Yeah, well, they were older than me. 2
Yeah.
of them were older
Uh-huh.
than I was. And one of them went to Berea College,
Okay.
and she became a teacher. And the other one, of course, got married, and I stayed with them for a couple of years. And I stayed with another family, and then I finally went down and stayed with my aunt on the farm. That's where I was. I worked 2 years on the farm
How about that?
before I come into service.
Well, I'll bet you were greatly loved by a lot of people then.
Well, I was really wanting to get off of the farm. I didn't want to stay anymore.
Yeah.
After 2 years, that's one reason why I joined the Army as soon as I was 18.
Join the Army and get off the farm,
Off the
huh?
farm, yeah.
Oh, that's great. After your schooling and working a bit, when did you enter the Army? Were you drafted or did you
Oh,
volunteer?
I volunteered.
Good for you.
Yeah, I was only 18-year-old.
Right?
They wouldn't have drafted me at that time anyway. They
No.
were getting ready to start drafting.
Yeah.
They hadn't ever started yet.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to wait till they drafted. I wanted to volunteer and go on in.
Yeah.
And that way I'd be able to pick what unit I wanted to go into.
Sure.
But if you drafted, you ain't got no choice.
That's right.
So I picked field artillery.
Did you know, as a boy, had you studied anything about the military? Did you know about the artillery?
No, I was perfectly green when I went in.
Wide
I had to
open.
learn from scratch.
Well, that's the best way. Oh, that's great. So, where was your first assignment?
At Fort Knox.
At Fort Knox. They sent you right to Fort Knox.
Yeah.
So you didn't go very far from home then, did
That's
you?
when they were just starting to form the 1st Armed Division.
Oh yeah.
In
Yeah.
the beginning, they just had the 75 millimeter guns, and they were type that they pulled. Then eventually, as they started getting the armor, they got the 105s.
Boy.
Mounted on tank chassis.
Right. Now.
75s wasn't much fucking. They would just bounce off the German tanks.
Sure. Sure.
But the 105s would work pretty good on them.
Yeah. Well, what about the maneuvering of those track cars? Like a tank track, was it?
Yeah, it had tank tracks on it.
Yeah. And they operated.
Just like operating a tank, really, as far as moving it.
It was a
Of
self
course, when they sat there open top with a gun mounted on top.
I see. Okay.
And
So they had.
my job was to deliver ammunition to those guns.
I see. Now, how did you do that?
Well, I'd haul 150 rounds of 105 ammunition, and when they give orders to me to deliver, I'd go to the gun and unload the ammunition. Of course, a lot of times they'd be firing over my head, and that affected my ears quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
And especially to be out in front of the gun, and it fired, you couldn't hear anything for 15 or 20 minutes after they shot.
You know, I've often wondered about that. Did anybody ever say wear earplugs or anything like that?
No, they never did say nothing to me about wearing earplugs.
Isn't that amazing?
Didn't even furnish earplugs.
No. Yeah.
Now, they might have to the guys that was on the guns, but
Yeah.
me being the delivery,
Right.
delivering ammo to the guns,
Now, how did they get the ammo to where you would take it to the gun? Was it brought up on trucks or what?
well, they brought it in on ships, and then they haul it and have a stockpile, ammo dump, and make an ammunition dump.
Okay.
When I went to get ammo, I'd go to the ammunition dump and pick up the ammunition.
Yeah. Yeah. Were those heavy shells?
Well, not too bad. They're heavy enough, but I mean, one at a time, you didn't pay that much attention to.
Yeah, right. Well, then after Fort Knox, how long were you there at Fort Knox?
Well, let's see, there was about 2 years we was in Fort Knox.
Really?
Yeah.
That was pretty.
No, year and a half.
That was pretty intensive training, wasn't it?
Yeah. But we went on maneuvers for 3 months down in Louisiana,
Oh, yeah.
and then up to South Carolina for 3 months maneuvers.
Right.
When we come back off maneuvers, we was getting ready to get 30-day leave to go home, and that's when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor.
Right.
All leave was canceled immediately,
Sure.
and eventually they gave me 8 days to go home.
Mhm.
That's the last furlough I had. In fact, it's the only furlough I ever got.
I'll be darned.
Of course, I collected furlough money after I got out of the service.
Yeah. Right.
Had to file for it.
So you were in the Army for what, about 8 months before Pearl Harbor?
See, I went in 1940.
Oh, and 40. Oh, so
Yeah, I was in
a year, more than
over
a year.
a year and a
Over
half.
year. What rank did you achieve?
Well, I had a T5, which is equal to corporal.
Right.
And later on, I got busted because they had an order, it was in North Africa, they had an order not to go into a certain town above there. And I didn't know they'd given the order, and me and another guy took an oath to go up to that town. I was on our way to the German front. And Sergeant found out we went up there, and he come up in a Jeep and told us to report back to the outfit that we wasn't supposed to be up there. And when I got back, the captain told us we were busted.
Oh,
We-
no.
But I eventually got PFC back,
Okay, yeah.
which I was PFC when I got out.
Well, it doesn't seem very fair. You hadn't
But
been.
I didn't know it was, we weren't supposed to go to
Well, no,
leave.
of course not.
We were spending the night there in that one spot.
When you left Fort Knox, was that when they sent you overseas? You went directly overseas from Fort Knox?
Well, we went from Fort Knox to I'm trying to think of that camp in New Jersey,
Oh.
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Fort Dix, yeah, yeah,
And we spent about a month there getting ready for
right.
the time to leave and go and get on a boat.
That was near the port of
They
embarkation.
loaded us on a train and sent us up to New York City. It come in after dark, loaded us on a ferry, took us to the Queen Mary. We got on the Queen Mary and I went in to the place where I was supposed to stay and climbed in my hammock and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, we was headed out to sea.
How about that? Boy, what an experience for a boy from southern
So I come up
Kentucky.
on deck and I did able to look back and see the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, you
and
did?
I said goodbye.
Bye, baby.
Waved goodbye.
What an experience, what a memory. Isn't that something? My gosh. How did you fare going across on that big ship?
Well, I enjoyed the trip, but we went through the North Atlantic, through where icebergs and everything went.
Right.
They had ways of knowing where the bergs were.
Boy, you were learning.
It was rough water, and the ship just rolled that way. I said, well, that'd be fun to go up top deck and take in that ride back and forth. I made it to the top, and that's as far as I could go. I wheeled back around, headed back down, sicker than a dog.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, the higher you go, the more violent it became. Well, of course, that was a very famous ship, and.
Yeah, it took a lot of troops overseas.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember how many that ship could carry?
I don't know, they had just about our whole division on there.
It seems to me, somebody told me that,
I know it was a big ship, because I'd go every day exploring,
yeah,
checking around over the ship, and I'd find places I hadn't been.
isn't that something? Yeah. What a great experience for a boy. Well, that is really something. Well, you were becoming a man in a hurry, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Man, this is a fast way to grow up. How long did it take to cross?
It was 6 days.
6 days. And you went to where?
Well, we come into Scotland Harbor,
Oh, yeah.
stayed 3 days in the harbor, and then they loaded us on a ferry and took us to Northern Ireland, Belfast, where we landed.
Belfast.
And then they loaded us on a truck and took us to a town called Kilkeel.
Uh-huh.
And we stayed there for 5 months. Now, I think what they were doing was they were accumulating troops just anywhere as they could till they built up enough men
Right.
for the invasion we finally made in North Africa.
Sure. So this,
Then they finally moved us to England, spent a month there, just a little ways from Liverpool. And we spent a month waterproofing our vehicles for invasion. We had to put waterproof the tailpipes, running pipe up, put stuff over the carburetor and distributor and stuff that wouldn't get wet.
sure.
So when we unloaded in the water, it wouldn't die on us.
Did you have a pretty good understanding of mechanics by that time?
Yeah, I could do a little bit of work on them.
Yeah.
We had mechanics that did, repaired them.
Oh, sure,
But
sure.
I know how to take care of the truck.
But, being a farm boy, you had to learn something
Yeah.
about mechanics too, of
Yeah.
course. Well, that's just so interesting. How did you feel about meeting all these fellas from other parts of the country and so forth?
Well, I didn't think too much of it. I mean, you get acquainted with them, they're just good friends.
Sure.
Wherever they're from,
Sure.
it didn't make any difference.
Right. Well, I can see in your personality, you'd fit right in anywhere with your demeanor and everything. So there you were in southern England near Liverpool. Is that from where you embarked for?
Yeah, we sailed out from Liverpool. They moved us from got ready to leave. We went to Liverpool and left on a boat. And we sat, I think, 2 days in that boat before they finally sailed. And then they sailed with a convoy.
Was that an army?
Convoy of ships. And we sailed out in the ocean, and couple of weeks before we finally joined up with another convoy from the States.
Oh.
There was 100 ships in that convoy.
Wow.
And we was on the way for the Mediterranean Sea.
Right.
And when we went in the Mediterranean, it was after dark, and there was I guess a boat from Spain. It had lights on, and they stopped the boat, boarded it, and made sure that they didn't contact the Germans until we made our invasion.
Mm-hmm.
They held them until we made our invasion.
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course at that time Spain was neutral.
Yeah.
And
they had their lights on the boat.
Yeah.
They knew it was Spanish.
Sure. And of course Spain was a harbor for
Germans and everything else.
And enemies and friends as well, I should say. So you went through the what they call the gates of Pillars of Hercules and past Gibraltar.
Yeah.
And
Did
you see the Rock of Gibraltar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We made an invasion east of Oran, where we landed. Some of the troops invaded at Oran.
Right.
Of course, Patton's troops came into Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they made remarks about him taking Casablanca with his 2 pearl-handled pistols.
He was a son of a gun, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Boy, he was an inspiration to his men. I know that. He had a couple of bad shots when he struck a soldier or so forth.
In the hospital, yeah.
But he had a quick temper.
Fact is, he lost one of his stars on account of that.
Yes, yeah. Did you ever see the movie Patton?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, with George Scott. Yeah, that was a great movie. Well,
that guy played that real good too.
Pardon?
Scott played that real well.
Oh yeah, he did. Oh yeah. Well, I think he got the Academy Award for that. Yeah. Did you see Patton in person?
One time in North Africa, I saw him talking to General, that French general.
Oh yeah.
They were standing together talking, and I saw him at a distance. I wasn't close to him.
Right. Did you have any contact with French troops?
Yeah, some of them fought right along with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, those were interesting, particularly interesting times because the Germans had invaded France and had taken over and had put their own puppets in government. And did you ever hear about the French fleet being taken over by the German government and so forth? And the reason I ask about that is because the French fleet was in southern France at Toulon, and the order came, of course, that the Nazis would take over the French fleet. And the reason I ask about it is because of the Mediterranean Sea,
Yeah.
and the fact that North Africa was French colonies, and the Germans needed those French ships, but that's another whole story. But the reason I brought it up is I wondered if you heard anything about that.
I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah. Well, the Allies managed to, through the underground and everything, the French underground, managed to lock up that French fleet, so that the Nazis couldn't use it. That's quite an interesting story too.
Yeah, it is.
And that was very important about our invasion of North Africa,
Yeah.
as you know, because it needed all the security we could get going in there. Now, tell me about going ashore there in North Africa.
Well, we east of Oran, it was very light resistance there where we landed. And I was on the boat waiting for my turn to get off. And the French, there were just a few French the resistance there. They fired one cannon shell, it hit short of the boat I was on. Then they fired another one, and I figured, well, this one will probably hit us. So it went over top of the boat, landed on the other side.
Yeah.
By that time, the infantry they'd unloaded came in on them, and they dumped the gun and took the breech lock out and took off running, got away, and stopped the firing. So there really wasn't much of the resistance for us there, except
Right.
that one gun.
Right. Where did you find, eventually, find the most resistance from the enemy?
Well, when we went into battle there against the Germans, that's when we really ran into resistance.
Now, what was that location? You remember where that was?
I don't remember the name of the place. It's been a long time ago.
Oh, yeah, I'll say. But this was in
It was
that.
in the edge of the desert, I know that. It was
Yeah,
the desert
right.
area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the British had a whole company trap cut off by the Germans, and we went in to get them out. And our artillery moved in and broke a hole for them to get out, and then got in the same trap. And we lost one whole gun battery.
Oh, my gosh.
That's when they pulled us back to a big valley and were going to reorganize. We called it Stuka Valley because they what was the name of that general that bombed,
Patton?
bombed Japan? One was in charge of that.
Oh, Doolittle.
Doolittle was in charge of the Air Force then.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd been sending planes over and bombing the Germans.
Right.
And as planes would come back, our officers down there, I heard them hollering, boy, Jim Doolittle's really pouring in on them today.
Yeah.
Well, at this time it happened to be Stukas. It wasn't Doolittle's planes, the German Stukas with the wheels down. I
Right.
looked at them and I said, that's not our planes.
Isn't it?
And I didn't even have a foxhole dug. And there was some truck ruts right in close to where I had my putt in. And I seen them start peeling off and coming in the bomb. And I crawled lay down flat in that truck rut, which sort of gave me protection from my body in
Right.
case a bomb hit close to me. They hit in not far from me, and one foxhole, the boys had a foxhole, and there's 3 men in it. It tore out the end of the foxhole. One of them had busted eardrums. They were all injured, but didn't kill any one of them.
Lucky boy. Oh,
And
boy.
one guy lost his eardrum, so he went to his death.
Yeah.
And after that, they started bombing us 3 times a day
Yeah.
with regular dive bombers. It wasn't Stukas anymore, it was a regular dive bomber. They'd come early in the morning, and then they'd come around noon, and they'd come in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
For a whole week that way. And then they started trying to move us out of there and move us into a place where we'd have some cover. And they started moving some of our equipment that last day they bombed us. And 3 guys had foxholes down in close to where that aircraft gun was. And happened to be, they was the ones that helped move the equipment. And they got direct hits on all 3 of them foxholes with bombs, nobody in them.
Oh, thank the Lord.
He was out moving equipment.
How about that? Boy, oh boy, I'll bet.
And another time they bombed, they caught a bunch of our men down to the kitchen truck getting their dinner, or supper, rather. And they seen the planes coming in to bomb, and they started just running, scattering everywhere, laying flat on the ground. You know, them bombs hit in between and never killed a man.
Isn't that?
Not a man. It took one guy's gloves out of his hip pocket. The shrapnel did. And
Yeah.
the cook's in the kitchen truck, piece of shrapnel hit him flat in the rear, but it didn't break a bone or anything, but it hurt him, I'm sure.
I'll bet.
It
Well,
knocked him flat,
you-
but it didn't even kill him. It didn't hurt him, other than just bruise.
I guess you got the Purple Heart for that, huh?
He probably did, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. And you weren't,
Never did get an injury from
You
bullets.
never got scratched or injured?
I had shell hit once when I was taking ammunition to a gun. The guy that was on the gun was from my hometown, and I unloaded my ammunition. And on the way back out, I knew there was shell on the road. And I waited till the shell hit, and I took off trying to get by. But it just so happened it had time to, at the time I got at that spot, the shell hit on the bank below us. Shrapnel come up through the top of her truck, bounced off my dashboard, piece glanced over my finger, but never even broke the skin. The boy front with me, was sitting on the right side, he was bouncing off his helmet, and he never got hurt. Neither one of us got injured.
Isn't that amazing? Boy, the good Lord was watching over you.
I said that.
I'll bet you
The Lord
praise.
was taking care of us.
I'll bet you praise Him a lot. Well, then, what was the progression of your duty there? You get you were East Oran when you first engaged the enemy, and then you started moving them back east, did you?
You talk about in North Africa?
Yeah, North Africa.
This was in Italy where I was telling about that.
Oh, that's Italy. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I got off into Italy on that, about the
Okay.
injuries.
So that pretty well wound up your experience in North Africa then, right?
Yeah.
And then you got orders to go to Italy, or was it
Yeah, we
Sicily?
made an invasion of Salerno.
Oh, yeah.
Salerno, Italy. That was after the war ended in North Africa. We had a month's rest, and then we took, loaded on the ship, and made an invasion of Salerno, Italy.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out on the deck of the ship, interested. I had to wait till they could unload my equipment too. And I was watching the infantry going crossing through the field, creeping along in the field, trying to advance, and then here come German tanks. I said, oh no, I said, these guys are in trouble. There's a cruiser right above us that had big guns, started shooting at the tanks with these big guns, and the tanks took off and got gone. It saved their hide.
Yeah, I would say so. A cruiser could have 6.
Because we didn't have our guns off yet, we were still loading up the ships.
Of course not. Oh,
We
boy.
had our artillery off,
Yeah.
we could have defended them.
Yeah.
And I heard then later that the British moved into the town Salerno, right above there. There was Germans in there, and the Germans evacuated out. They'd already called for our bombing squads to come in and bomb the town. And after the British come into the town, they come and bomb the town, and they're bombing the British instead of the Germans. The Germans got left. And
Yeah.
several other British got killed from their own planes.
Yeah, there were very sad stories about misidentification, you
Yeah.
know, and knowing where so-called friendly fire.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what they mean when they say friendly fire, but it ain't friendly. Well, you were right there in the front lines. That's just
Yeah.
amazing. You got ashore at Salerno, and that's where you had your close calls.
Well, before I got offshore, right after I watched this, I looked up and seen a German plane coming over the boat. And I said, uh-oh, and I had a stair wheel right close by.
Uh-huh.
And I ducked and started down that stair wheel, and he shot as I went down the steps, machine gunned me.
Okay.
But I didn't get hit, because I ducked down that stair wheel.
Oh.
It was a close call.
You didn't even get hit by shrapnel or anything, huh?
No,
Oh my goodness sakes. My God, they should have given you a medal just for being
just from a close call.
in harm's way. Okay, then you got ashore, and then was there an advancement up the boot
Yeah,
from?
it didn't take us long. We advanced on up to Naples.
Yeah.
The Germans retreated on up into, you ever hear of Monte Cassino?
Yeah, oh,
Well,
terrible.
that's a place we couldn't get them out of.
Yeah.
We shelled that, our guns would shell that, and I'd haul ammo one load right after another, and they blast that place apart
Yeah.
in the section there, not the monastery, the area around it where the Germans were. They shelled that and bombed it, and they sent after in to try to take it. The Germans come up out of them holes and start mowing them down with machine guns. They couldn't get them out. They finally just gave up. That's why we eventually made the invasion at Anzio.
Anzio to go around, sure.
There was no invasion there, but that wasn't no resistance there either much.
Uh-huh.
When it landed, there was one German scout car come by with 3 drunk Germans. It took them prisoner. And of course we established a beachhead, and instead of going on across and cutting the Germans off, it just made that 15 square mile beachhead. And 2 days later, the Germans were moving in and trying to push us back into the water.
Mm-hmm.
They made their all-out attack on us, and I haul ammunition, one load right after another to the guns, and shells hitting all around me. And I just gritted my teeth and went on. I knew I had to do what I had to do.
Sure.
And I'd load ammo and go back and get another load.
Yeah.
Finally, they told me not to come back anymore. That was the last they had. We was out of ammunition.
Is that so?
But the Germans and Americans made an agreement to stop, pick up their dead.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time of picking up the dead, we were getting more ammunition.
Right.
And the Germans didn't try to push us off anymore because they lost about, I'd say they lost 5-1 in troops than we did. Because I watched their guns firing right into the Germans, making their attack. I could see the Germans and their guns shooting straight into them. And it was slaughtering, I mean, they slaughtered.
You saw that slaughter?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, what an experience. Well, that, as you point out, that the first landing at Anzio was very little resistance, but then it intensified.
They tried to push us back into the water.
Sure.
And it didn't work.
Sure.
They seen they couldn't do it, so they gave up on that and just was content to hold us there.
Wasn't
Well,
it?
the reason they held us as long as they did, because it was raining. Our tanks were mired down, and they couldn't maneuver in the mud.
How about that?
Our guns couldn't maneuver around in it, because they couldn't move in that mud.
Right.
They was waiting for the rain to let up,
Yeah.
and when it did dry up, that's when we made her push out of
Sure.
there.
And of course, the weather was disadvantageous for both sides.
Yeah.
The
They
enemy
couldn't do
as well.
anything
They
either.
couldn't do anything either, could they? Isn't that something? Well, going back to Monte Cassino, I've seen pictures of it, and that monastery was on a very, very strategic height.
Yeah, it's right on top of the mountain.
I mean, they could see everywhere from there. And of course,
Yeah.
that's why they had her
That's why they was using that.
fortified. Sure, sure. And she must have been built pretty strongly to withstand as long as she
Yeah.
did. Did you ever see Mark Clark, General Clark?
Yeah, I saw him.
Did you?
Yeah.
How about that? He was an imposing figure, wasn't he?
He was a good general. He was in charge of the Fifth Army,
Yeah,
the whole Fifth Army,
right.
all together.
Well, he was tall and
Tall man.
dark, good looks, and he was a very imposing figure. I
He was a
understand.
smart general too.
Smart, very smart. And unfortunately, you know, when he went back into Korea, then his record was stained in a little way, and it really wasn't his fault, because that Korea was such a
Yeah, it was a mess.
horrible
Yeah.
thing, and the politics and everything that forbid our soldiers in Korea to really get pushed, and then they repeated the same thing in Vietnam, which was a terrible situation. But getting back to the Italian campaign, how far north did you go in Italy?
Well, at the end
Did
of
you
the
get to
war,
Rome?
right at the end of the war, we drove all the way to the Swiss, almost to the Swiss border.
Oh, you did?
But the Germans, I think, something I couldn't understand, they gave us orders one night to move. It was in the last of the part of the war. And we went right through the German lines, went all the way to the Swiss border and set our guns up and waited for the Germans to come up, and they wasn't a shot fired.
Oh,
So I think they had an agreement. I never did learn for sure, but I think they had some kind of agreement to let us go through. They wanted to surrender to the 1st Armored Division.
yeah.
And that was their agreement. They had respect for us. let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
right.
They wanted to surrender to us.
Oh, boy, how different things are from what we're facing in Iraq today, yeah. Well, it's interesting, Ernest, because, to me, because here's something that a lot of people don't know or overlook. Now, we all know about June the 6th, 1944 in Normandy,
Yeah.
the big D-Day. But do you realize that Rome was liberated the day before that, on the 5th of June, 1944? And many people have no idea about that at all, because there was such an interest and fixation on the Normandy landings.
Yeah.
But the day before that, you know, in the meantime, our people were coming across the English Channel to Normandy. Rome was being liberated by the American and the British armies. That's a fact that a lot of people don't realize, and it was a terrible battle, you know. All of a sudden they opened up the city, but you got into Rome, did you?
Yeah, we advanced. See, the Germans didn't do any fighting in Rome. They
No.
agreed to not to destroy Rome.
Open city.
They retreated north of Rome. We moved in north of Rome and set up a place where we were going to stay that night. And all at once, the fascist was in a building from the top window, was firing at us. Hit one of the guys, I remember it was in the arm or leg, but anyway, our captain gave me and 3 other guys orders to get our guns and go get that guy. We went over to where the window, we knew what window it was, went over there and got him behind trees, with all 4 of us standing with our guns ready behind the tree. And he come to the window with his gun again, all of us fired at the same time. And of course that was the end of him.
Wow.
Killed him right on the spot.
How about that?
He was a fascist that sided in with the Germans.
Sure, sure. Yeah. One of the interesting and kind of sickening events, of course, was the fact that the Germans had caught Mussolini and his mistress. And
Yeah.
remember that photo? They're hanging upside down.
Yeah.
Were you anywhere near that when that?
Yeah. I saw him.
You saw him?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've never talked to anybody that actually saw that. Isn't that something? What, you just happened to come on it in the street or something, or what?
No, we, I don't remember now why we was in that area at that time, but it was,
Well, that,
anyway, I got a picture of it. I didn't take the picture, I got a picture from
yeah,
where somebody else took the picture.
sure, sure.
I think I gave it to him.
Okay.
He's got it over there.
Save it. Did you ever come in contact or learn about any of the famous war correspondents like Ernie Pyle?
I saw Ernie Pyle on the Angel Beachhead one day. But
Did
I
you
didn't-
really?
I didn't get, I seen him go by in a Jeep.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to talk to him.
Oh, my God.
He was a guy who was well respected.
Oh,
The troops loved him.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as you know, he got killed over in Japan,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
on one of those little islands south of the main islands of Japan.
Yes,
Yeah,
sniper.
he was a great rider and
Yeah,
a
he
very
was.
brave man.
He traveled right with the troops.
He really lived with them, didn't he? Yeah, he never excluded anybody
No.
just to hobnob with the upper. Well, that's something. So you, golly Moses, you saw George Patton. Did you see Doolittle in North Africa?
No.
You didn't see
I
him.
didn't see him.
Didn't see him, but you saw Patton, and then you saw Mark Clark. You saw the French general,
Yeah.
and I can't remember his name, but
De
anyway.
Gaulle.
Huh?
De Gaulle.
Oh, you saw de Gaulle.
Yeah.
Oh, that was de Gaulle.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you saw a lot of famous people.
Yeah.
And then Mark Clark, and then Mussolini, dead, and Ernie Pyle. Now, how long did it take you to get from Anzio clear up to the Swiss border? Do you remember that?
From Anzio to where now?
The Swiss border.
Well, we spent the whole winter after Anzio in the Apennine Mountains.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I almost got hit with a shell.
Yeah.
The shrapnel went up to the top of the truck. When I was coming out from the guns, they was shelling that spot, and I knew they were shelling it, and I waited behind a building till one shell hit.
And
And then I took off trying to beat it.
Sure.
They undoubtedly their observer must have been watching us. And he seen us moving, they probably give orders of fire, and
Sure.
that shell hit by the time I got to that spot.
Did
It
they,
hit under the bank, and the shrapnel come up through the top of the truck.
did they have,
Bounced off the dashboard,
wow,
and he's glanced over my finger.
good gosh.
And my buddy on the right side, he was on the side where it hit. I heard him say that bouncing off his helmet,
Yeah,
just little small pieces of shrapnel.
sure, sure.
But neither one of us got a cut, didn't even
Oh.
get a cut.
That's just the
And I was
most
kidding him, I
amazing.
said, Chucks, we won't even get a Purple Heart, will we?
No. Yeah, you had to stop and get hit to get a Purple Heart, and in the meantime, you were adept in getting away from everything. That's just amazing. Ernest, you're some kind of a guy. Well, you were trained as a boy down in the hills of Kentucky to survive
Yeah, that's
and
true.
be strong and learn how to get along and everything. That's so very important. I know I was on 3 different ships. I had shipmates on a couple of the ships who came from Kentucky, and wonderful men, wonderful. Started out as boys, but during the war, they became men, but they had that innate training, that natural ability to think and know what to do, and I always admired so many people like that. So there you were up in North Africa on the Swiss border. You didn't get into Switzerland, did you? She was a neutral country.
I made a trip over there visiting after the war. Me
Oh,
and
you
my
did?
wife went, and I went into the edge of Switzerland.
Oh, yeah.
On this tour we was on, they go right up to the Swiss border, and they crossed the border into, it's near the lake, the big lake there.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the Swiss, that checked for passports and stuff, stopped and just asked if everybody got their passport, and said, yeah, okay, go ahead. Didn't even look at them.
Yeah. Pretty friendly and nice,
Yeah.
and of course they realized you were Americans, and
Yeah,
that's a pretty good passport
but
sometimes.
we was only over there, but I think they let us stay 3 hours, go around shopping if we wanted.
Sure,
And then
sure.
we come back into Italy.
So, did you
I was
go?
touring Italy is what we was doing.
Yeah, did you go with other veterans on that tour, or was it just a
No,
It was
me and
a
my
travel
wife went together, and
tourist?
it was a tour group.
Yeah.
Just from different places.
Gotcha,
It was
gotcha.
organized.
Now, how'd you meet your wife?
I met her in Kingsport, Tennessee. I got a job when I got out of the service, working in a paper mill down in Kingsport.
Oh, yeah.
And she was down there working too. She was not too far from where I lived, used to live. It was in Virginia, there close. See, I lived right close to Virginia line.
Right.
And her home was about, well, from where I was born and raised, it was probably about 20 miles, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And it just so happened I met her, she was down there working too.
Ah,
I got acquainted with her through a friend that I was
Sure.
working with in the paper mill.
sure.
And he was going with her sister. And he told me about her, and I said, well, I'd like to meet her. So I arranged for us to meet,
Yeah.
and of course we hit it off pretty good.
Well, I should say so.
Been married be 61 years in March.
Is she in good health?
She's fairly good health.
That's good. That's great. How many children do you have?
Only two, and one of them right there.
Right there?
Well, they're both there.
They're both
Two
there.
sons, yeah.
Well, that's just an amazing story. How are we doing on time, Dennis?
Got about 10.
Okay. Let's go back just a little bit now. Is there anything else that you want to pick up? Any incidents or stories that you would like to relate? Because you know your family's going to see this thing eventually, and your
Yeah.
friends and so forth.
Well, I don't know how much more time you have.
Oh, we got 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
That's a lot. You know, and what people, of course, like to hear and like to see you telling is your personal experiences, you know, your impressions of where you were, or people you met, or the wonderful stories you've already told us about your harrowing experiences against the enemy.
Well, when the war ended, the Germans, you know, of course, was laying down their arms and surrendering. And I did manage to get a German Mauser off
Oh, you did?
a German officer,
Yeah.
a pistol. You can shoot a .32 automatic shell in it. And it had they had listed as a 7.2 millimeter, I think,
Uh-huh.
something like that. But it's the same thing as a .32
Mhm.
automatic. But I have the gun at home, and I got a permit to bring it home. I remember when I come into Miami, I flew back across. I had
Oh,
one
you
of the
did?
choice that got a chance to fly back,
Wow.
coming back from North Africa. I mean, from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Flew to North Africa, to Casablanca, and I spent 3 days there waiting for my turn to get on the plane. And we flew to the Azore Islands and gassed up, and there was 5 of us in my company. One of them had to get off and let an officer get on. I never did see him again, because he probably had to wait till they sent a plane with a vacancy for him to get on. And I never did see him again. He was from Georgia, a
Uh-huh.
little wiry type of guy.
Yeah.
In fact, says he wanted to whip a lieutenant once because the lieutenant tried to tell him how to drive his truck. First sergeant come and stopped him, grabbed him. He jumped out and went around and going to pull the lieutenant out of the truck. And the first sergeant seen it, he ran and stopped him, grabbed him, and said, "Here, you can't do that."
Before you get in trouble.
He saved him from getting in trouble.
Yeah. And of course, he knew more than the lieutenant did, probably.
Well, I guess. You tried to tell him how to drive the truck.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I know it. Well, that was amazing. And then you flew into Miami, you say, from the
Yeah, we
Azores?
spent, I think it's 3 days there. And of course, we get to go into town.
Sure.
And I remember too, they had, I guess, a USO or somebody was there working, giving away ice cream and milk. It's 2 things that I always loved you couldn't get over there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how many glasses of milk I drank, but I ate several ice cream cones.
Sure.
Stocking up.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, that was welcome stuff.
And they loaded us on the train and sent us to Camp Atterbury, Indiana.
Okay.
And I spent 1 day there. They was going through the process of giving you a discharge.
Right,
You had a service. And asked if you want to re-enlist. I said, no, I don't want to re-enlist. I just want out.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
of course, now before I left from Italy, they interviewed me there too, trying to get me to re-enlist and go to Germany to occupy Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Offered to give us 2 jumps in rank if we'd take it. I said, I don't want anything. I said, I just want to discharge, get out of the service. But I was ready to leave.
Oh, I understand that. I understand. And that was a pretty pervading atmosphere or feeling among so many fellows. I know a number of fellows stayed in the reserves and so forth, but getting home, that was the big thing. Getting back to your friends and your family and so forth, and that was so important. Well, as you look back on your experience, so you were overseas for what, 2 years?
I was overseas for 3 years and 1 month.
3 years and 1 month. Wow.
Of course, that's counting, that wasn't all combat.
Travel and so forth.
5 months in Ireland and 1
Yeah.
month in England was
Sure.
in that.
Well, that counts.
But the rest of it was in
combat. You bet, I should say. It sounds like a silly question, but a lot of people who have not had the experience that you and I have had ask, and that is, what was your most, let's say, what was your most fearful time? Was this
Actually, I think it probably was when they were bombing us
under fire?
In that valley we was in. We didn't have any protection except I dug a hole,
Yep.
foxhole, and that's all.
And nowhere to go?
Nowhere to go.
Boy.
And
And-
actually, I held my nerve pretty good, but it was a scary time.
Right.
And I'd get my machine gun and set it at the end of my foxhole and fire it as much as I could, 30 caliber.
Uh-huh.
First sergeant come over to get in the foxhole with me, said he didn't have a foxhole. Said, can I get in here with you? I said, yeah, you will get in. And while I was firing the gun, he said, get down, you fool, you get your head blown off. Bombs was hitting everywhere. And of course, after he said that, I quit and lowered my head down below the hole.
Right, right. Well, we think of personalities and things about World War II, and Bill Malden, the great cartoonist who fought as a soldier, in Europe, but he drew those wonderful cartoons of Willie and Joe.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember them?
Yeah.
My gosh. And I'm sure you knew people like that. Maybe you were like Willie and Joe yourself.
Yeah, probably was.
Some of those funny things, Oh my golly. I was looking through a book of Malden's cartoons the other day, and the library has a couple of his cartoon books here that you can take out. And if you want a good laugh and you want to perk yourself up a little bit, look at those wonderful cartoons, because they had, not only did he understand everything, but he had the ability and the sense of humor in his cartoons, and what he had his characters talking about to be absolutely knowledgeable, because he'd experienced it himself. And the humor and the irony of those cartoons was just outstanding. Well, I'm so impressed, Ernest, to be with you and to have, it's been an honor for me to talk with you and to learn about your background and your good life and the ups and downs, of course, of...
Yeah, we all have that.
We all have those, don't we? Sure. And the different people that you saw, historical people that you saw. And, but as you say, once you hit Camp Atterbury,
I was ready to leave.
that was it. Well, I think we've come to the end of it here, and as I say again, Ernest, it's been a great honor for me.
It's been a pleasure. being able to talk to you.
Well, you've been a wonderful raconteur and storyteller, and we hope your health continues. You're looking fit. And,
Yeah, doing pretty good for 84.
absolutely, that's just great. Well, thanks a lot. God bless, and
God bless you.
keep 'em flying.
All